I'm sure there will be more joining while I'll be quickly doing the intro. A warm welcome to everybody who is here in the room. For those who are joining for the first time, my name is Deborah Keller and I manage the Global Impact for Breakfast Network, an initiative supported by the Artha Impact Initiative, which is the impact investing arm of the Rianta Capital Family Office. Impact for Breakfast is an informal network of family offices, foundations, funds, venture philanthropy, intermediate organizations with a common focus on social enterprise, entrepreneurship, and impact investing. This specialized group has been gathering and growing since 2008. We started in London with the expansion today to 15 chapters. Today, we will learn about case studies from Uganda and the journey from marginalized youth and refugee communities to social entrepreneurship. SINA, the Social Innovation Academy, has developed a self-organized approach of enabling marginalized youth and refugees to create their own solutions in the form of social enterprises. Etienne Salborn, founder of SINA, will share with us critical lessons in a conversation with Joan Nalubega. She's the founder and director of Uganics, which is a SINA-born social enterprise, successfully fighting malaria through a mosquito-repellent soap product. Before we dive into today's session, I want to inform you that this session is being recorded. We will be sharing with you the recording after the event. You're welcome to share with your network and colleagues. As always, we welcome your thoughts, comments, questions, and ideas. You will have the opportunity to share what you'd like to share in our chat field. We will have a dedicated slot after the conversation where we have time to cover your questions. And now, with no further ado, over to you, Etienne.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we're really excited to be here, me and Joan, and thank you for the introduction and the invitation. We are both in Uganda. Just as a heads up, the connection with the internet is not always fully stable. We try our best, but if there's any breaks, then you are aware already, and we'll try everything to fix it or to come back as soon as possible. Otherwise, yeah, we thought we have a little bit more like an informal conversation, getting into insights into how marginalized youth transform into social entrepreneurs. And Joan has really done exactly that. So I would even want to start taking us back in 3. And Joan can tell us a little bit more what happened then, and how as well that connects through SINA and everything else to where we are today. So with that, Joan, would you be willing to share a little bit more, maybe your background, where you come from?
Okay, thank you so much, Etienne, and thanks everyone for coming. My name is Joan Nalubega. I'm right now 23 years old, and I'm a social entrepreneur. I grew up from an orphanage in central Uganda, and I was taken to the orphanage in 2003 when I was 6 years old with my young sister because our mother was sick and she couldn't take care of us anymore. So the covenant took us to the orphanage because of that. And growing up without parents, growing up with other kids, there was a lot of fun with it, but there were also a lot of challenges with it. And mostly me, I suffered a lot from malaria almost every week. And because of that, I missed school a lot. I was bullied, and most of my schoolmates thought I had HIV because of my sickly life and my size by then. But that wasn't the only challenge that a child like me in an orphanage faced. So at first, the orphanage used to take us through primary school and then through high school. But then at some point, because of the sponsor, like some of the sponsors and the donations being stopped, we used to only stop in the primary school. I don't know, maybe Chen will elaborate more on a term that everyone understands. So as the students who hadn't yet reached into the high school were really worried about how our lives would look like after the orphanage lets us go. So they used to have to look for one of our family members who could take care of us just to stay home. So some of us started writing like letters to volunteers that used to come, like when Etienne came to the orphanage as a volunteer. A lot of us wrote to him letters if he could help sponsor us or find sponsors for us to take us through high school so that our lives don't seem like they're ending there. Yeah, so that's a bit about my life as I grew up. It was fun. Growing up with a lot of children was fun, but also growing up without family and the fear for not having a life or a successful life or a life that has education was also something that was challenging. Yeah, so maybe Chen can talk more about when he came to Kankore or to the orphanage and more about the children when we were there.
Yeah, so I came for the first time to Uganda in 2006 as a volunteer for 1 year in the orphanage where Joan and about 100 other children were living and growing up from. And as Joan said, I was faced with the reality that the children after primary school would basically be left to themselves or would not have any opportunity to continue to go to school. And I reached out to family and friends to ask them if they would be willing to support the children to go to boarding schools and continue education. And the response was really positive. And that started the whole journey because the sponsorship program was born. So there was a first generation and then another one. And then every year it would continue. New children would join the sponsorship program. And I founded an NGO in Germany to kind of manage that. And more children would come on board. And Joan was one of them. And over the years, then, of course, what happened? The children grew up and Joan and others became young adults, finished high school, some with really good grades. But then, there was a new challenge that needed to be solved, which was that the youth, with the education they received, were not able to find decent jobs and were not able to go to university because tuition fees are very high. And there's a very high youth unemployment rate in Uganda. So that was the point for me to come back also to Uganda again and then stay permanently since 2013, where we all sat together, Joan and others that had just finished high school or were about to finish high school, and we thought about what can we do now. And it was clear actually we need a space or a system where young people would create their own jobs if there's hardly any jobs available. And that became SINA, the Social Innovation Academy, where quickly we realized we need to develop a model that allows people to gain the skills that they need later to start their own businesses, because the youth, not just orphans, but more and more other youth from difficult backgrounds joined us. And we developed a system that allows the youth to gain the skills and experience they need for starting their own social enterprises by actually running the community itself. So we have communities where about 50 to 70 people are coming together and are taking up responsibilities, and that gives them the skills they need for later starting their businesses. And ideas are then being incubated to test the market, to find out what works, what doesn't, to refine the ideas, to become in the end social enterprises that then leave SINA with their own businesses established. But I think I want to take more opportunity for Joan to share more the whole model and how she experienced it, because we have the inside view of how this looked like really for her on the ground and what it did to her. So Joan.
Okay, so that's a journey. So after my high school, that was in 2014, after going through the sponsorship program throughout the 6 years of my high school, I joined the Social Innovation Academy in 2015, and like it has it's like an environment that is outside the world, the normal world that I used to live in. Etienne has mentioned about the self-organization in the academy. Like it's us, the scholars and the coaches and the mentors, we all run the place together, or used to run the place together, because now I graduated out of the place. We used to run the place together, and this gave us space to learn different skills. For example, I went through different roles, like being working in accounting or the finance department, working in the community wellness and happiness and hospitality, working as an ambassador at the academy. So it helps give the scholars or the people, the youths that live there, like skills, one, multitasking, and also gain like skills that they'll need if they're to run a business, like so the soft skills. And then like it's like a guided model that shapes someone's mind to be open-minded, to be we call it responsible, like using our freedom well, that like you don't have, we've grown up having a schedule or a routine that in the morning they are going to wake you up, they're going to tell you do this, do this, do this. But then this place changed my mindset, that even right now running a business, because when you own a business, no one is going to tell you do this. When a challenge comes, no one is going to tell you do this or go about it in this way. So for example, there are sessions that were provided like in communication. Like I wouldn't have gotten these kinds of skills in like a university. Nonviolent communication, the communication skills, and practicing them on a daily basis, because this is the kind of environment that is being built, and the things that we learn, we are supposed to practice them, or we practice them in the environment, and at some point they become part of you in your daily life. Yeah. So
I think I will share a couple of pictures to just illustrate what we have talked about before. Here we can see Joan in 2006, and it has been a long journey from that time to now. And that was me in 2006 in the orphanage as well. And that's how we got started with building SINA, the first SINA community near the capital of Uganda, Kampala, where we have been building houses, for example, out of plastic bottles as one of the first innovative solutions to get the mindset going that, we can be innovative, creative, and resourceful. And this is how the first community looks today. And it's really about kind of even going beyond empowerment, not just giving people the power to do something, but really igniting something that they can realize, even when people have gone through difficult experiences like Joan has shared. And we have many others who have been going through traumatic experiences, gone through being even child soldiers, or very difficult experiences that sometimes, if we look deep inside them, they can also be a big strength, because if you have gone through difficult experience, that can become almost like an antagonistic asset, something that people might not realize that it is a strength you can actually develop. But we have seen that people who have gone through difficult experiences often have this drive that can't be stopped, and which is a good thing, to make a change, because they want others not to have to go through the same difficult experience as they have. And that can be a really good drive for creating a social enterprise. And we'll share a little bit more of some of those examples later. And so in 2016, when Joan was starting to develop or has unleashed her potential and was starting to develop her own idea, her own business, which she will share a bit more in a minute, we also started to engage with refugees. who actually found us. They heard about SINA, and then a group of 3 refugees joined SINA. And after 9 months going through the program and unleashing their own potentials, they realized, okay, this has helped us to not understand our life as being a victim of the circumstances that happened to us, but we can be in the driver's seat, we can create a change, and we can actually maybe help others as well in the refugee camp where they have been living for 5 years to unleash their potentials, self-organize, and create local solutions in the form of social enterprises within the refugee camps. And they said, okay, if the goal is for us to start a social enterprise, can we not replicate the SINA model in the refugee camp? And that's what happened in the end of 2016, where we supported them to first also build a house out of plastic bottles to get started, to get going. And from there, we realized that the model that we had developed really kind of caught fire, you could say, in the refugee camp in a good way, that many people from diverse backgrounds, and Uganda has about 1.6 million refugees, come together in those refugee camps and have very little opportunities to do something in their life. But if there's a space where they can come together, organize themselves, and build on the different skills and backgrounds that they are, remarkable things can happen. And first social enterprises as well started to emerge from the community within the first refugee camp. And that helped us to realize, okay, the model might work really, really well in a setting where it's residential, people come together or live in the space, but it can also work in different communities where people come every day and start organizing really their community, not just the space, but even the surroundings, and create change. And yeah, that helped us to realize we need to move out more into working with refugees and invited many more communities. And today we have 8 SINA communities in 5 different refugee settings, 4 refugee camps, 1 in the city, and as well have gone beyond that. Some of the refugees have even gone back to, for example, Congo, where they have come from, to set up a SINA community there, which again is locally owned, locally run, self-organized, and creates change there that even people within difficult countries, difficult contexts, don't have to become refugees in the first place, because they're creating economic opportunities and businesses within their communities. And yeah, how that works when it comes to creating a social enterprise out of SINA, I want to hand back to Joan, who then at some point, I think it was around 2016, the same time as SINA was starting to replicate, Joan embarked on the journey to her own social enterprise. And maybe you can share a bit how that worked and what it does and what it has.
Okay, so besides SINA supporting me or us turn our backgrounds into opportunities, and besides the creating of Uganics and like all this, I'm going to talk about my social enterprise, but just wanted to mention that it's because of the value that SINA puts in us or engraves in us, and the utilizing our passions to create the social enterprises, but also the support for each other. Etienne mentioned about the sessions and the time the refugees started coming, SINA started empowering refugees. And I remember that like being part of SINA, it's not just about you getting out what you can get out, but also it's more about us youth supporting each other. But so in 2016, I founded Uganics. It's a social enterprise that is fighting malaria in sub-Saharan Africa by utilizing everyday household products like soap. Right now we have soap, creams, candles, lotion bars, and yeah. So what we do is we blend our mosquito-repellent components into the soap or into the product, and we sell them through a social business model, utilizing the tourism industry and the urban market, which has the middle and high class earners, They buy our products at a high profit margin, and we're able to cross-finance it for the low-income communities at the same price as they buy regular soap or regular products. In the screen, those are some of our products that we developed, and all we developed is through SINA. And we're able to start from SINA, but we've been able to reach here utilizing the skills that we gained from the Social Innovation Academy, like utilizing opportunities, looking for opportunities ourselves, looking for resources we need, and utilizing the resources that we have available to achieve what we want to or what we need to. And so Uganics, we also work with, right now we work with hospitals who get our products, our subsidized products, to the low-income communities and the local communities. And then we also have a women empowerment group where we recruit low-income farmers in rural communities, train them how to grow the herbs that we use, and set up oil extraction centers for them. So they do the oil extraction for us. We buy the essential oils from them, and in return we get quality raw materials, have a reliable supply chain, but then also they have a source of income that they never had to take care of their needs and their families. So yeah, I'll give it back to Etienne.
Yeah, so thanks for sharing more about Uganics. And it has been one of the, I would say, most successful enterprises that has come out of SINA. And we realized early on that in SINA, we don't want to kind of finance the enterprises and make them dependent, but we provide only kind of the minimum capital you need to maybe produce a prototype, to travel somewhere within Uganda to meet people, or to buy whatever you might need to develop the idea further. But then the next point is that the idea needs to kind of be validated from the outside. And that is through customers, ideally, or maybe even some have gotten some small grants or donations to take the next step, that other people started to believe as well in an idea. And from there, it has taken on. And I think SINA scholars have become incredibly successful, including Joan, to win awards or grants and small capital as well that allows them to take this next step. And yeah, remember, for example, Joan took part in several competitions, the Ansisha Prize, and was recognized there, and the Johnson & Johnson Innovation Challenge. And that helped as well to, I think, for Uganics to take the next step, which was started within the community in SINA, had this kind of production space here, but then now through the support was also able to move out, and now has its own factory. However, at that point, we also realized that now the enterprises like Uganics had, let's say, 10, 20 employees, and was doing some good amount of revenue, but was still on a smaller scale. And there's still more support that is needed now that the enterprise has moved out. So we started as well an acceleration program that combines all the enterprises from all the different SINA communities, which are 8 at the moment, and helps them again to build a growth plan to take the next steps. How do you get from where you are right now to really becoming a substantial impact organization, and also generate more jobs and more opportunities. And within that also we realized that, of course, there's a funding gap, which like I said, there's small grants, donations, or maybe revenue from finance that can get you going. But then there's the bigger investment that many nations are looking for, which often starts at $500,000 or $250,000. Below that, it is really hard to find traditional investment. So how do we get, for example, Uganics, from the story you've heard, to that point that they're able to get that funding? So we started to continue our journey and even move a little bit into that investment space, because we realized our enterprises need more support to grow. And we developed something which we call the purpose pool, whereby we invest, or have developed and prototyped right now. It's the early stages, but a model that combines 3 innovative ways to have the enterprises being supported through $5,000, $20,000, maybe maximum $50,000 to allow them to take the next step and then be able to potentially one day raise more capital if needed through the more traditional investments or impact investors. And the model that we're trying to prototype is based on a peer-to-peer selection. So the due diligence process is normally the most expensive part of the investments. But within the SINA communities, people know each other, people know the context, people understand how business could work and maybe what cannot work. So if the due diligence is kind of self-organized within the different SINA communities, it can be, or that's the assumption, very much successful in the selection process and very kind of affordable. So, and then the ones we invest in they pay back through revenue share. So if it's a business, for example, in agriculture, it means that if it has a bad season, then it's not a big problem. But if it has a good season, it pays back more. So it's a payback through revenue share. And as well, the payback means that they own shares into the pool so that the money that is generated stays within Uganda and brings value as well to the organizations that we have invested in. So the investees become kind of investors. That is the goal. And yeah, I'm happy to say that Uganics did one of the first prototype investments we have done with the Purpose Pool. So Joan has now had a period of about almost 1 year to use the investment to finish her factory, and now has started the payback period. And yeah, Joan, I would love to hand it back to you here to give us a few more highlights from your perspective now that you have gone through this journey from the child that grew up in an orphanage to become kind of a social entrepreneur, and now you're even moving into the space of, let's say, becoming an investor and supporting also other organizations within SINA and with mentoring and training as well, and now this investment space that we are together embarking on. Any insights from your perspective?
I think this is what is called entrepreneurship, but being part of the Purpose Pool and the fact that Uganics got an investment from the Purpose Pool, we got it at a time we really needed it, because as Etienne mentioned, we're finishing our factory and we needed more investment to complete the structure. And the Purpose Pool investment came in handy, but also it came with an opportunity, or comes with an opportunity that I'm able to support other entrepreneurs like me when they also are in the same time of need at some point, and not on pressure. I pay back what I earn. So for example, it's a revenue share payback that if, as Phil he mentioned, if we are having a bad season, we don't have to pay what we don't have. But then, yeah, it also, as an entrepreneur, my main aim is to make my community a better place. And if there are entrepreneurs like me that are doing the same thing like I am doing, and there's a way that I can support them, because, for example, the selection process right now, the Purpose Pool is changing. It's getting more involved into how can we support these entrepreneurs that benefit from the pool, grow their sales, grow their revenue. How do we help them grow their businesses? And I'm part of that. So it's just an opportunity for me to benefit, but also benefit others more like me. So yeah. Etienne, that's something.
Yeah, thank you. So I want to share again maybe a few more pictures and also highlight a few more points of everything that we have so far talked about. Here maybe a couple more pictures. The beginning of SINA started, we constructed houses out of plastic bottles, which also allowed I think the mindset shift to see that when you, for example, use a resource like plastic bottles that is normally seen as a problem, but it can become the basis for business. And that starts to change the mindset that we don't need so much money or capital in the beginning to start a business, but we need resources. And many resources are actually all around us if we think outside the box, for example, through upcycling or recycling. But also what we already talked about is resources that we have within us. For example, the experiences of Joan as a child suffering from malaria a lot, to use that as a strength and a starting point to create a change. And we have a few more examples I want to share. We have about 45 enterprises that over the last 5-6 years have emerged from the different SINA communities, most from the first one because it was the starting point, but also now from the new ones. And 45, or many more have emerged, but 45 are the ones that are still existent today and are creating impact. And here, maybe 3 I want to highlight that have a similar story of this kind of transforming a problem within the personal history of the founder or the team into the strength or the change that they want to create. And the first one is called Totia Platform, which is providing medical emergency support for victims of sexual violence and rape. And also then psychosocial support like counseling and psychological care, and as well follow up with police and court to have the perpetrators convicted and if the victims want to get more justice in that whole process. And it's a very big topic, especially through Corona. It has increased a lot, that sexual violence unfortunately is increasing. And the founder herself has suffered from that unfortunately herself, and has used that as a strength again to maybe heal herself a bit through now empowering others that have gone through similar experiences, and as well the bigger goal to create awareness to stop sexual violence in the first place. And this antagonistic asset within her, I think, has been a drive for this enterprise. And similarly, we have Chendi, which has the slogan "Your Positive Network," because it is founded by a young lady who was born with HIV. And it's something that is highly stigmatized in Uganda. People often don't want to have other people know that if you're HIV positive, it can have consequences in terms of maybe even being bullied or losing your job or being stigmatized and discriminated. And she has to take, as many others, her drugs regularly to keep the HIV virus low. And she realized that people often forget maybe to take the medication, that people sometimes don't take it at all because the moment where they don't want to show that they're taking something like that because people could maybe tell that they are HIV positive. So she started her social enterprise out of her own experience, her own challenge, and developed one kind of a subscription model for SMS. So she sends out on a large scale to all the subscribers. She has text messages that remind people to take their drugs, but it's packaged in a way that it is like a motivational SMS message that if anybody else reads it, they will not know that it has something to do with HIV, but it is like an inspirational message. And as well, she delivers medication to people at home, at their work, and the medication is packaged in a way that it is like a gift. So nobody will know that it is medication, but it looks like somebody has sent a gift. And that's out of her own background. And another one is in the refugee camp in Bidi, one of the largest refugee camps in the world, with about 300,000 South Sudanese refugees in Uganda. And they have a lot of waste that is being created with so many people living in the refugee settlement. And they started as well to embark into paying people to collect waste and then setting up a small micro kind of recycling plant and creating also bags and accessories out of basically waste materials, and using the resources available in the refugee camp to create jobs and the change. And another one similar is employing people with disabilities to create fashion accessories, again, out of waste materials. And just to show the power, again, of social entrepreneurship, I think if people really are trying to create a change, they're also easily adjusting to the needs and creating new innovations all the time. And for example, Chimuli fashionability was hit a lot by COVID because it lost a lot of customer and markets because of everything was shut down and tourism was not existing anymore. But they also had this challenge that working with hearing impaired people, they were not able to communicate with them anymore because of mandatory masks. And they started to create a mask that was having a see-through, and that almost went viral. They were one of the first ones in the world to do that, and won an award, and were able to be featured even live on BBC, and started to sell their masks globally to organizations and working with hearing impaired people, and we're kind of shifting a little bit their business model to have an income in that COVID time, while creating again a big impact. And here maybe another view of that's how refugee settlement in Uganda looks like. That's Nakivale. 100,000 people, mostly from Congo, but also Burundi, live there. And that's the first replication of SINA that happened within Nakivale. And it has really over the last years transformed the camp, that there's now an amphitheater where people, well, before COVID, but it's coming back now, come together and have more than just the basics that are covered through UNHCR and others. So they're able to have all their needs met, and that's through their own initiatives, as well as a lot of social enterprises that have come up using, for example, that lake whereby everything else is quite dry, but there's a lot of resource in the lake. So people have started a business to irrigate around the lake with pumps, and families are learning how to do agriculture. And the camp has, I think, created a lot of opportunities for themselves, and from there, it has started to spread into other camps. Today, we have, again, 8 SINA communities, and also in Zimbabwe in a refugee camp where it was replicated by the youth, by the beneficiaries themselves. So we don't want to go anywhere and say this is the solution, do this, but the other way around. We want to find people that are interested in the model, that come out to Uganda or to SINA to go through the model, experience this firsthand, and then be trained, if they're interested, to replicate the model and create their own local community, their own local organization that replicates the model, and again, brings up people to unleash their potential and create social enterprises. And we have formed kind of a community of communities that now connects all the different SINA communities as well as the enterprises, and collectively then steers and evolves the model forward to evolve its purpose to a global movement that we are having as a new aim to create systemic change and allow people everywhere to create their own solutions in sustainable ways through social entrepreneurship. And I think the story with Joan has elaborated that, I think, really well what is possible, and there are many more stories we could tell. But I think for now, would be really great to talk a little bit more interactively. And I think we stop for now and really move more into comments, questions, reactions. Maybe back to you, Deborah, for now. Thank you again for allowing us to share our story, and I really look forward for any questions and comments.
Thank you very much, Etienne and Joan, for this inspiring stories and path you've gone through, Joan, and on your side, Etienne, for building this up. It's amazing what SINA does in those refugee communities. We have questions coming up in the chat field, but I just wanted to maybe shoot out with the first question. With SINA, as you see growing into other refugee camps, I mean, it really seems a model that does create long-lasting change in those refugee communities. What kind of partnerships would you need, or what in your field that could support you going into other refugee camps and building the SINA model?
Yeah, we have, for example, already partnered once with the UNHCR, who were the ones that selected, well, the SINA model won an award by UNHCR, the Innovation Prize, and that put us together more with them. And they were then in Zimbabwe, in the local office in this refugee camp, interested in exploring and selecting 2 youth, sending them to us to Uganda. And then we worked with them and supported them to the point where they went back on the 1st of March 2020, which then was exactly where COVID started. So unfortunately, UNHCR was not able to now kind of pull through what they had promised to support them, also to build up the community, because their priorities had changed from one day to the other. But we were able to support them further, and today they have just finished the construction of a few buildings out of plastic bottles, have started already as much as possible throughout the last 1.5 to 2 years to train with the youth and the beneficiaries, or the scholars, how we call them, the refugees to unleash their potentials and have the first ideas of social enterprises coming up. So bigger organizations like that work with, for example, refugee communities like UNHCR or some of the refugee councils from the different countries would be great partners if they want to explore further how we can enable the refugees to create their own community and use that model to really create a change for themselves. But it could also go beyond, for example, like we said, countries where there's instabilities, where also refugees are coming from within the region here. It might be Congo, but also Somalia or South Sudan. Other countries like that would also be very interesting to potentially find partners who work in those spaces to explore with us together how this could work. And we're very interested in finding more partners.
Thank you, Etienne. Etienne, we have Fortunat has had a question about, I think, do you want to share your question yourself, Fortunat?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, good morning to Uganda. I was actually asking whether you know savings groups. You know, it's a quite powerful tool that's been used in rural poor communities to empower people from the financial side. And we are actually working on a pilot in Ghana right now, trying to digitize this model. Have you ever heard about this? It's quite big actually in Uganda.
Maybe Joan, highlight a bit more since you're also working with the women in the communities, and then I can jump.
Yeah, it's actually mainly women. It's sort of a self-organized groups that come together, save money, and then give credits to themselves. And it's really like basically it's a group of women being their own bank. It's really powerful actually.
There are a number of saving groups for women. So do you know? Yeah, but I know a couple of saving groups for women in Uganda in different parts of the country. Because we also have a saving group of women for our extraction project. But yeah, do you know the specific name of this group?
Sorry, you were breaking up a little bit. I couldn't understand everything.
Yeah, I was asking, do you know the name of this group? Because we have a number of saving groups for women in Uganda.
Yeah, there are actually the very many different local names for it. But let's say the methodology behind it, it's sort of a common methodology. Then it's often implemented actually by NGOs. They train people, and then people create groups with their own names. Different NGOs use different names to make it their own brand. But in fact, it's really a common methodology of financial education really that's behind it. It's called the No, it's just have a blackout. No, it's called, you can go to the Savix platform. You can see it. Will come to my mind. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this concept. Yeah, we have also seen a lot this idea with the microfinance, microcredit, or table banking, SACCO. I think there's a lot of different terms, but they're all quite similar, or different ideas and concepts. But yeah, we also have one that has become a social enterprise working with refugee women who provide small microloans and also financial literacy and some training to help them make a daily living. And also there they have had an incredibly high success rate. I think about 100 women have received finances already, and latest I heard that only 3 have not been able to pay back for now. So it's I think it's a model that works well on a smaller scale to help people to lift them out of poverty and start their first kind of entrepreneurship journey?
Yeah, it came to my mind. So it's called actually VSLA, Village Senior Loan Association. It's a methodology you will find on the internet, but it goes beyond microcredit or SACCOs. It's really self-organized groups. So all the return on investment goes back to the groups that they have quite high returns, and because with microcredit it's still a credit, it's still a debt, and with these groups, it's actually self-organized, and they give themselves money. It's a bit different. It goes beyond, and generally smaller amounts. Really rural areas, very poor people, and it's also been experimented in some refugee camps. I know that in Kenya, etc. But just Google it up, and it's really interesting methodology. Maybe you can integrate it in the more financial aspect that you were mentioning, etc. It could be some sort of self-help. It's basically self-help groups, basically.
Yeah, sounds wonderful. Could you say the name one more time, or maybe post it in the chat? Then for sure we'll look it up. And
yeah, we'll put it
the
in
model
the
is
chat.
always evolving, so there's always room to take best practice from anywhere to improve.
Thank you, Fortunate. If you can share it in the chat box or share it with me, I'm happy to pass it along. We have a question from Derek. Derek, do you want to share your question yourself?
Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm trying to I'm putting do you hear me and everything?
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much, Joan and Etienne, actually, for this moment of sharing. It's been very interesting. My question is redirected to Etienne, and as you're building those communities, which are being scaled across geographies, I was wondering, are you starting to consider using digital tools to maybe build common infrastructures? And my thinking comes from, let's say, basic community-driven tools like payments. So of course, people think about M-Pesa and this type of platforms, but maybe some kind of local currency type of approach could be maybe interesting as complementary to traditional funding. And maybe on the health side, you have now decentralized digital diagnostics tools, for example, that are being used for the COVID or other types of diabetes and this type of things, but it could be maybe used for basic health and could provide maybe some kind of a, let's say, what we call, data which could help prevention on health, or maybe optimize nutrition, or maybe, let's say, share data with local hospitals, which could provide maybe a more dynamic health coverage. So rethinking about the basic infrastructure that could be complementary to what an entrepreneur and their families could maybe have access to at an affordable price. And maybe digitalization could help and could be something which is portable. You could bring from a refugee camp to then actually wherever you relocate, or even actually widen your community's protection. So it's just some thinking I had and was wondering if it's something you might be considering.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. We have not yet considered it so much, but I think the power of this self-organized approach, and also with all the communities that we're having and more coming up next year in, again, new countries as well. Kind of the model of what a SINA community is now tested and proven and has worked to bring up youth like Joan and others to start social enterprises and then get them to be independent and successful. But there's much more, of course, now in the communities that can be done, like you say, maybe local currency or more health services or other things as well, that I think what we can do is test it in, for example, one community and see how does it work there, and get ideally some youth or some scholars on board to do it as their own social enterprise or to try it out. And if it then works, then we can see it, okay, has it worked only there, or can it also work in other communities? And then kind of take that best practice and test it in other SINA communities. And then if it works as well there, then it can kind of be added to the general kind of model of SINA, that this is kind of what we would recommend for any SINA community to do. That's kind of the flow of how we think the model can evolve. So not so much top down now, this is something we should all try, but if there's interest somewhere, then let's try it in one community. And if it worked there, then move to others and see, does it also work there? And then kind of see, can it become a general thing? So if you have contacts or anybody else with those kind of ideas, it would be really, really great to explore them and then see where can we potentially test something like this. I like this idea of a local currency, especially in a refugee camp. I think it could be something super interesting. Or also more healthcare providing or other forms of basic and human needs that are often not met in those circumstances, that maybe through SINA community and through social entrepreneurship could be taken up. So we would be very interested to explore that further.
Okay, great. I'll stay in contact then. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Derek. Joanne and Etienne, as question where I would love to hear from both of you. Where would you see yourself in the next 3-5 years? What would you like to see happen in the space you're working in, and what would you like to be?
John, you can go ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much. So in the next 3 to 5 years, for example, Uganda, our aim is to reduce malaria cases, by 20% in sub-Saharan Africa. And our plan for this year, next year, we're already going into the East African countries like Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania, and Burundi. So we would like to expand our innovation throughout the sub-Saharan African countries by creating partnerships with different people with the same vision in this country. So the next 5 years, I would like to still be fighting malaria, and I would like my impact to have grown, because right now we've impacted up to 2 million people, subsidized up to 500,000 soaps for low-income communities. So I would like this impact to continuously grow, for us to employ more people, but more to really grow or improve health in low-income communities.
Thank you, Joan.
Yeah, for me and for SINA, I think within the next 3 to 5 years, we want to reach kind of this leverage point, this tipping point, where now we have 8 communities, and maybe by then it could be around 20. And for now, everything still goes through the main community that you saw us on the picture, where everything started from. Like, if people are interested to replicate, they come here, and then from here experience the model and have this deep transformation within them, and then get trained to replicate somewhere else. But now that we have, for example, a community as well in Kinshasa, in Congo, where it's much closer to West Africa, the language, the culture, why should people come from West Africa, for example, to Uganda, if they could also go through a SINA community that is much closer to their context? So within the next few years, we want to get the SINA communities that are existing right now all to a very high quality standard that they're also then able to replicate by themselves. And from that point onwards, it becomes kind of potential with even exponential growth. And we just have to make sure that the quality standards and all the SINAs that are coming up are still high. But then, this model can really expand and create change in many, many communities. And that's the goal that we want to see. Hence, we have a new vision of kind of a global movement that allows that change to happen.
Thank you. Etienne, we have time for one more question from Petra. Petra, do you want to ask your question yourself?
Hello, hi. I'm sorry if I missed part of the presentation. I hope there will be maybe a recording shared later. So if this was already discussed, please ignore it. I work for an organization that is collaborating with some of the impact investors that are trying to focus as much as possible on refugees with some concessionary, not kind of lower rate loans, and are trying to kind of pilot some projects where either cooperatives or microfinance institutions or even non-profits would try with these smaller loans for enterprises that might need something more than a savings community may provide. I don't know if you've encountered or worked with any of these. I know we're at the end of the time, so I'm happy also to connect separately if this is something that's of interest that fits within your model or not for these microloans by external providers to be included.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes it's a bit tricky with the microfinance, microloans. When Professor Mohamed Yunus was in Uganda, I think 2017 or something, we met him as well. And he gave also some talks, and he was a little bit furious. You could say that his initial idea that was supposed to be lifting people out of poverty has now caught on. So many organizations that have done this, that are really charging like interest rates that are so high that is really kind of a new form of exploiting the people that are taking the loans. And that makes it hard for many enterprises or entrepreneurs to take that, because it's also a big risk then. And some have then taken a loan, and then to be able to pay back, to take another loan from another organization, and they kind of enter this vicious cycle that, that doesn't really help them. But some organizations do have, I would say, fair rates, and a few of our enterprises have as well sometimes taken microfinance, but not so much on a larger scale yet.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's interesting. If you have some experiences anyway, I would be happy to get in touch, because we're also trying to be careful. We've only partnered with some nonprofits who are really kind of not doing a profit, who are offering rates that are sometimes even lower than the saving groups. But it's a special, it has to go like partly, it has to be philanthropic funding. It's not a for-profit enterprise, but also being aware of all the caveats, because we're trying, of course, not to create a problem instead of helping. So at some point, if we are looking at Uganda and such, if you are open to it, I could get in touch, but completely understand all the caveats and concerns which we share as well.
Yeah, please do reach out. Would love to explore more. And please.
Great. Thank you very much, Petra, as well.
Thank you.
I would like to thank the audience for the great inputs and insights from your side, and especially to Joan and Etienne for the conversation. It was super insightful. And I think that the work you're both doing is impressive and groundbreaking. If there's anyone in our crowd network that should meet Joan and Etienne, please make sure to connect them or share this recording with them so you can pass along and they can hear about the insights shared today. That's it from my side. I thank everyone for being here, and I look forward to seeing you at another Impact for Breakfast session in the coming month or next year. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you too. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.